Hello everybody, it's me, GhostCritic, and I hope you're ready for a question of the week, because it is Monday, and this week I have had a lot of comments, especially on my Friday review videos, about why I've not picked up such and such comic. And with there being so many number ones coming out from all over the place, whether it be Marvel, DC Image, Boom Studios, Dynamite, wherever, there are a lot of number ones coming out. I do struggle to decide which ones to pick and which ones not. And yes, I do go get those comments, why did you not get this week? Why are you not buying this week? And I wondered, withdrawing the kind of financial aspect out of it, if you were put in a scenario where, say, there are 3 new number ones that came out in any given week, and you could only afford one of them, what is it that attracts you most to pick up one rather than the other two? Say, is it the writer? Is it the publishing house it's come from? Is it a character that you have a certain affinity to? What is it that makes you pick up that particular issue number one? It doesn't have to be a certain title. Just what attracts you to picking up something that's just come out, an issue 1? Now, questions this week have a nice set of questions to be answered. They were set last week. You watching now, if you've got a burning question that you want to ask me, I will gather them all together and I will answer them in next week's video. So once this is ended and you get to hear all the questions that have been asked last week answered, then pop a question down in the comment section below along with your answer to my question to you guys. Now, we're going to kick off with a slightly difficult one for me to answer, but it's a great question. And that was from Faintest of Breath. I've only just recently, probably in the last month or so, I reckon, that I've been subscribed to this channel, and he's really good. I'm going to put a link to his channel in the description bar below, so go to that and click on the link and go watch his videos, because he has got a great set of comics that he gets every week, every month, and he has some great thoughts, so do that. Now, he asked me, his question was, what's the allure of the indie titles over Marvel and DC? Now, the reason I found this very difficult to answer was, firstly, because I don't really know Faintest of Breath very well, given the time I've spent watching his videos. And these may be assumptions, so please correct me if I'm wrong, but I have made some assumptions about his reading habits. And I do believe he is of the big two. He loves the capes, the masks, the superpowers. And this is what's making it difficult for me, because I think he loves those type of comics so much, and he has every right to. If you love that kind of stuff, read as much of it as you can. But I do think you are missing out on a lot of great indie titles, because I've got examples here. But what I think is, even if I do show you these, I don't think it's going to make much of a difference to you. In his comment, because that was just the question, he put a lot before it, saying that he thinks that people are ignoring DC and Marvel like they don't exist to go to indie comics. And he's seen, for him personally, there's nothing in the way of art or stories that blow me away and convince me that indies are better than superhero titles. And this is my second assumption for Faintest of Breath, is that I'm not sure that he's been a long-term reader of comics. He may have just been kind of brought back into comics due to the New 52. I could be wrong, but I don't think people have moved away from Marvel and DC because they think they don't exist anymore. I think they've had enough of those two big companies. Obviously, the New 52 put off a lot of old school readers who have been collecting comics for, let's just put it out there, for decades, and they have this connection to the history, the rich, deep history that DC had. And while fine, it wasn't really working in some respects, and something had to be done to shake it up a little bit, perhaps they went too far to the extreme to create this new universe. So I don't think that they've done it because it doesn't exist to them anymore. I just think they're tired of the same kind of stories now being retold for DC in this new universe. For Marvel, you know, we hear all the kind of event fatigue, the tie-ins, and we've just had this thrown in our face for so many years that for someone who has been reading comics for a long time, it's tiring, and it's starting, and has done, lacked heart anymore. And I think that's what people find a lot in indie comics, because they're, I mean, especially in Image, and we say indie comics a lot of the times, and this new phrase that's being thrown out now is creator-owned comics, where the creator has now the freedom to tell the story that they want to tell without any kind of editorial influence. They are not being told, you now have to tell a story about this because we have this event coming, or you have to tell this story within X amount of issues because we want to put out a trade and it's going to have to at least be 6 issues long or even longer, and then we can put out 2 trades or a big omnibus edition, something like that. Now, like I say, I've got a stack of comics here, and I could show you these. I can tell you why they're great, why I enjoy them, why they appeal to me more than, say, an Avengers book or a Spider-Man book or a Batman book or a... What else am I collecting in DC? Because I'm not collecting a lot of stuff other than Batman related stuff. But I just don't think you could read them, but I still don't think you will get much out of it, just because it is not your thing. And like I said, that's fine. I mean, I love That's Because You're a Robot, because it's quirky, it's kooky, it's kind of off left field. Give you Night World, it's because of the history of the kind of Jack Kirby influence. The Fade Out, the first issue, fantastic crime noir, perfectly plotted by Ed Brubaker, with just the perfect art by Sean Phillips that evokes the atmosphere of that era. 5 Ghosts, Barbera and Moneyham, just for me brings me back to my youth when I used to go to the Saturday morning cinemas, that kind of boys adventure feel to it. Black Science, the artwork in this is phenomenal. Matt Scalera and Dean White on this is just fantastic. There's not a lot you can really kind of be negative about, and I'm really a sci-fi buff, so this fits mine perfectly. David Lapham, Stray Bullets. It's depressing as hell, but the stories are so well told. They feel real, even though they're in a comic book kind of ethos. Brian Lee O'Malley's Seconds, an original graphic novel. It's quirky, retro, hip feel, really appeals to me, and there is so much heart in this book. And finally, Darwin Cook's Richard Stark's Parker series, gritty crime noir that's just begging to be made into a TV series. Just an astonishingly good story, well paced, immersive. Just, it doesn't get much better with crime noir than you know, Darwin Cook's Hunter, Parker series, and anything by Ed Brubaker basically in Image. His Criminals, his Sleeper, his Fatale, his new one, Fade Out. So you are what you are, and that is fine, but please don't ever dismiss indies. They have some new creative, I keep saying it, but it's got so much more heart to it than what's going on in DC and Marvel right now. That was a rant. Sorry, but there you go. There's your question answered. Derek Lucarelli, who would I like to see on the Batman creative team? This kind of came out of probably Wednesday's video last week when I was talking about Snyder, and you know, I think he's a great writer on Batman, but wouldn't it be great to see someone else for a change? He's had a good long run, give someone else a chance. And the two names that kind of, I don't know why these came to me. I was probably looking at my shelves and looking at names on spines of kind of graphic novels, but I think it would be interesting to see either a Brian Wood penned story or even a Brian K. Vaughan penned Batman story. It's just, I'm not so bothered about the art style or who comes on as art, but I just want to hear a different take on Batman that isn't Snyder. He's great at what he does, there's no denying that. But when you hear it for years and years and years, you want something new and fresh. And it was kind of interesting to hear, because I listen to a lot of podcasts, and one of my favourites is the iFanboy weekly podcast that comes out on a Sunday where they review the comics. And they made a really quite valid point about creators in general, and how few new and upcoming voices we're hearing now. It is all your kind of, I don't want to say old school, because Scott Snyder isn't really that old when you think about it, but they are all these very familiar, commonplace names who are taking on all the big titles. And, you know, there's a reason why DC do it, it's a reason why Marvel do it, because when you put Snyder's name on something, when you put Dan Slott's name on something, it's gonna sell. And that is basically their bottom line. And we'll get more onto companies' bottom lines a bit later on. So those are my two that I would like to see. Whether we will or not is another question. Adam West the 7th asked, what is your opinion on the JSA, the Justice Society of America? Now, shamefully to say, I've only actually read the last volume of Justice Society of America, the one that came just before the New 52 kicked in. And I actually really enjoyed it. The only part that kind of disappointed me, because hearing other people talking about the group, the superhero group, these were like old school, Silver Age, Golden Age characters, still kind of working but in a modern setting. And that really appealed to me, because, you know, how they dealt with crisis after crisis, you know, how they dealt with different scenarios than, say, the Justice League would. But in this series, what disappointed me a little was that they started introducing a lot of younger characters, and there was this feeling of legacy about the series, which was fun in a way, but it wasn't what I was hoping to get out of the JSA. Also, they kind of had that spin-off. They had the JSA All-Stars, where the group got split in kind of into two groups. It didn't work. It was awkward. It was clunky. I tried JSA All-Stars. It was terrible. I probably lasted about 3 or 4 issues. Didn't like the character of Magog. But the JSA main title, it was a shame that it finished where it did, because I think it was Bill Willingham at the end had turned up and had all these storylines that are now just left hanging. I don't think we'll ever get to get them resolved, even though, you know, there's kind of rumblings of the JSA coming to the New 52 universe. But all the stuff about what was under the city where they had their headquarters, and the stuff with I think it was Starman, it's just all been left hanging. And the bit with Alan Scott and his kind of big outfit that was the power battery basically now for his powers that he was encased in because of his accident. Obviously that's never going to be resolved, because I'm sure he's in Earth 2 now. Who knows? But I really enjoyed it. I don't really have a lot of reference to anything earlier than that. I kind of got onto JSA because I was getting a little bit disillusioned as well with Justice League of America that was out at the time, because the kind of core 5, so to speak, of the Justice League, you know, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Flash, Aquaman, they had all gone, and we had this group of basically B and C listers, and it just went all over the place, and I just needed something new with a super group to read, and that just the legacy characters really appealed to me. Moving on to Joshua Hayes, good old Back Josh, throwing me for a curveball this week. Not a comic book question, but it was fun nonetheless. Breakfast, lunch, dinner. You're being served for a day. What's the perfect meal day? So we'll begin with breakfast. Now, as much as I love a full English breakfast with your sausages, your eggs, your bacon, your hash browns, you know, the whole works, I'm actually a lot happier with just a plate of toast. It's got to be white bread toasted with, you know, butter on it. No jam, no marmalade, nothing like that. Just a plate of white bread toasted with butter on, and a pot of freshly brewed coffee, and I take it black. So that's breakfast. Lunch, I know this is bad, but I don't eat lunch a lot. But if I do, if I'm out, if I go to a sandwich bar, it will pretty much always be tuna mayonnaise. There's something about a tuna mayonnaise sandwich, and it doesn't need to have anything else in it. No sweet corn, no cucumber or anything like that, but a nice tuna sandwich does me grand. Now, dinner is a lot more difficult, and I'm gonna go with 2 because I can't make up my mind. But a steak. You can't beat a well-cooked steak. And when I say well-cooked, I like mine rare to medium. And obviously mushrooms, onion rings, big chunky chips. Either that, or I could eat this day in, day out, and I know, and I have done at times, and I shouldn't, but lasagna. Lasagna. I'm drooling at the thought of it now. So, toast and coffee, tuna sandwich, and either a steak or a lasagna. Thank you, Josh. Clouded Journey. Are you going to drop Batman? Again, I think this came off the back of my Wednesday video last week, my pull list video. Of course, I'm not going to be dropping Batman. As much as I not complained about Batman in my Friday review video, but you know, I had issues with it. I still enjoyed it. It was a fun superhero book, and you know, there's nothing wrong at all with Scott Snyder and Capullo, Greg Capullo. They are great creators in their own rights. So no, not at all. Finally, Mr. Gretzky 9966 asked me, what do you feel about companies raising prices of books, and at what price point would you stop buying comics if it reached that? Now, I kind of mentioned this in my Friday's video when I was talking about the price point of Batman issue 35, which had gone up to $4.99. And you can go back and watch that, but I'll kind of go over a bit about what I said then and maybe add a few more points about it, just in general. Now, as I said in Friday's video, I am quite fortunate in that I have a lot of disposable income at my beck and call. You know, I have a relatively well-paid job. I don't have a mortgage. I don't have kids to support. It's just me and my partner, and we go out. You know, we go to restaurants, we go out for day trips, we have shopping trips and the like. So when I go to the comic book shop, maybe it's wrong for me to do this, but I don't necessarily look at the price of what is on the comic. And if I want it and I have money in the bank, I will buy it. Now, I know that isn't everyone's what's the word I'm looking for? It isn't everyone's way of life. I know that. So you have to ask yourself, how much do I want this comic book? Now remember, please remember, and this is probably a huge sin to say within a comic book community, but they are only comic books. They're not a cure to cancer, you know. If you don't have them, you're not going to feel, you know, ill, or you shouldn't feel ill anyway. You know, they are not there keeping you alive. They are pieces of paper, thick and thin, with colours and pictures and writing on. That's all they are. And you don't need them in your life. We want them, but we don't need them. So you have to say to yourself, how much do I want this comic book? And if I want this comic book and it's maybe more than, you know, I'm normally going to pay for that, am I happy not to get A, B and C? So it is a personal thing. I mean, obviously, if the titles keep going up in price, you know, I do have a limit, you know, of a month, in the month, of comic books I can buy. There is a limit there. And if they all suddenly turned out of being $4.99, then, you know, I would have a tough time substantiating buying all those at that price. And then maybe I have to look at my comic books and go, well, is this comic book worth that money? And again, it could come down to page content, you know, how many pages there are in this book. You know, are the writers actually writing a good story that I am enjoying enough to warrant paying that amount? It's all very subjective. It's all very personal, and it will change for each individual. I hope that kind of answered it a bit better. So thank you all for watching till now. Remember, answer my question at the top of the video and pose a question to me in the comment section down below. Don't forget to go and check out Faintest of Breath's video channel, YouTube channel, and I will see you next week with another question of the week. Until then, bye bye.